in the previous session, we talked about how to create the simple Azure cloud architecture for the any ASP.NET web or API apps. So this is a very basic architecture we discussed earlier, creating one web app and one API app. And these two web app and API app are going to sit inside the app service plan. This is something I am building for the Book My Taxi is the website, web application for the front end built in ASP.NET ASP.NET Core MVC, and the backend is ASP.NET Core Web API. And this is the public-facing website, so security is not that important for protecting the website. So that's why I call it as the simple or the basic cloud architecture. So let's start creating the resources for whatever we have listed here. So in this session, I'm going to cover how to create the Azure resources for web app and app service plan and the app insights for the web app. And the same thing, API app, app service plan for the API app, and the application insights for the API app. So there will be 6 resources I'll be creating inside the same resource group. So this is the plan. I will have a resource group. Underneath that resource group, I have a app service plan for web app, and I will name it as Book My Taxi - web app service plan, and this is for development. And then create the web app inside that app service plan. Same thing, separate app service plan for the API app. So the name API will be prefixed here. Create the API app, and then application insights for the API app, and the SQL resources. So SQL resources we will create in a separate session. So let's start creating. So there are 2 ways to create the Azure resources. One, directly you can do it in the Azure portal. And the second one is creating resources using the RM template. So the second one is the recommended one, so that you can make it dynamic, and that the same RM templates can be used for multiple environments. Let's say you have completed the QA and planning to push it to the you completed the QA and planning to deploy to the production. So you can use the same script, just changing the parameter names for the production. So creating manually is the error prone. So if somebody makes changes, so you will lose the track of it. So we need to have the script created. So in this session, I'm going to talk about creating Azure resources using the RM templates. So let's start with creating the Visual Studio project first. Open the Visual Studio as an admin mode, and then click on File, New Project, and then create, select the cloud and Azure resource group. So I will leave the name as it is. We can give the appropriate name. When it comes, you can select the blank template initially and then click OK. And then, so this actually by default creates Azure deployment.json file. Everything is blank since we selected blank and there are no resources. So one is the deployment JSON file, one is the parameter JSON file, and this is the actual PowerShell script which creates the resources. So if you take a look at that, this is actually reading the resources from the staging file. I will not go more details on this. It will also validate the template. If the resource exists, it will not mess up the existing resources. If it does not exist, it will create. If exists, it will update. So all that is written already as part of this template. So we just need to take a look at the resource group. So since I am following a particular naming convention, so let me follow the naming conventions for giving the resource groups and all. So my resource group name, so in this separate project I've already done before the demo just to save some time. So I'm going to copy paste some of the resource names and some of the code block from the other project. So this is my resource group. I've updated the resource group, and then before even you add anything, make sure that the script is built. Every time make sure that you build and go to the Windows Explorer. When you go to the Windows Explorer, make sure that in the debug you will see the staging, and in the staging folder you will see a project folder underneath that, all these files. So if this is not done correctly, then your script will be messed up. So make sure that you build it before you make any changes, and you will see the staging folder and then all the files which are appearing on the front end. So for this architecture, what is how to start creating the resources? So what will be the first resources? So we need to go in a sequence. Otherwise, the dependency objects will not be identified, and you will get the errors in the script. So we need the app service plan before creating the web app. So same thing, app service plan for API app before creating the API app. So that means let's start with the app service plan, then create the web app, and the web app has a dependency on that particular app service plan. API app has a dependency on the API app's app service plan. So first I will create two resources, which is app service plan for API app, app service plan for web app. So if you look at my other project, I have a script already ready. So I will just copy paste the script. I will explain whatever is written inside the script. So this script will create just the app service plan. So we can rename it to say app service plan. So let me create a folder called, just to keep a sequence, app service plan, and we can move these two files inside the app service plan. And in fact, we can rename this as app service plan hyphen app service plan hyphen, and when you open this, we have app service plan for API. So this is the variable name. You can give it any name, but it's recommended to use the same name as what we are planning to use. So this is my app service plan API app service plan name. So book my taxi hyphen API app service plan. So instead of hyphens, I can use the underscores in the variable. So you can make sure that you give the proper description. The second resource group for app service plan for web app. So just change the web app service plan. So the naming convention is exactly the same. So these are the two resources I'm going to create. And this is a script for creating the app service plan. This is called the RM templates, Azure Resource Manager template. So app service plan for API app, and this is the type. this is actually the DLL or the components of the Microsoft provided Microsoft.web.server forms, and this is a SKU I'm using, basic pricing tier, and the kind is app for API, and then give the name. So this is how you should read the parameters in the RM template. So I've created a parameter. So there are parameters, variables, resource, and output. So these are the four blocks you will see in the RM templates. So this is how you will read the parameter value. So I'm naming that. That's the resource name, API version, and the location I'm reading from the PowerShell script. So it dynamically reads whatever the resource group you use for the PowerShell script. That's what going to be applied for the app service environment. Then the next resource for web app, same thing, same pricing tier I'm using, find app, and the same thing. So just the variable name is different. Now let's take a look and run this. Before even run, make sure that you build it. And so since I created the new folder, I get this error, unable to remove the directory. So you can clean by right-click, clean directory, and rebuild. When you rebuild, that error is gone. So it deleted the folder. And when you go to the debug, staging, and you should be able to see that new folder with the new file. So make sure that this is working as expected. Otherwise, this is very important. Otherwise, it's difficult to debug the errors. Now, validate the script. So let's make sure that this is my subscription. So whatever the resource group I'm planning to create here, it should not appear. And then go here, select the subscription and resource group. So since I'm going to create a new resource group, you can say book my taxi resource group dev. This is the resource group I want to create. I want to create in the North Europe. So let's say created, selected the app service plan files. Make sure that if you want to edit here, you can edit runtime, but it's already picking from the parameter.json file. Let's say validate. Now you will see in the output, it's validating. Now it's connected to the subscription, and then template is valid. So the next step, right click and say deploy. Deploy to the, you will see the resource group which I have already created, and then selecting the resource group, selecting the template, selecting the parameter file, and then say click on the deploy. Now you will see the app service plan is going to be created as part of this script. Now template is validated. It says template is validated. If there are any exceptions, you will see the template validation will fail. Now every 5 minutes, 10 minutes randomly it will check the status, and it will display the message checking deployment status in 5 minutes, deployment status. Now here is the resource provisioning started, resource provisioning successful, same thing, this is successful. So temp deployment completed successfully. So these are the two resources created under a particular resource group which we mentioned. So let's go to the Azure portal, and in this blade, if you refresh, I can see the new resource group. Click on the resource group. I'm expecting 2 resources under this resource group. Those are app service plans, one for web app, one for API app. Now, same thing, we can go and create next set of resources, that is Web App and API App. For that, create another folder. Apps, API, and Web. Just keep the API. So you can rename this to, let's name it as app. App. So this will create API app and web app. So I've already created the script. Again, I'm going to walk through the script. Let me copy paste from here. Now again, make sure that we clean. You will see unable to remove the directory. And then click on rebuild. So that has rebuild. Let's go to the folder, and then I should be able to see app with my 2 files. That's good. Let's walk through the script before deploying the API and web app. As part of this, I'm going to create API app and web app. These two have a dependency on the folder 1, that's the app service environment, so which is already created. Under this app service environment, I'm going to create a API app and web app. Now, since we have the dependency, this is going to run separately. We need to keep again app service plan for API, app service plan for web. So I basically copy pasted from there. And only the drawback here is if you make any changes here, make sure that those changes are again applied here. That's the dependency. Then I'm creating the API. This is my API. I have given the variable name API underscore dev, and this is my website. So this is the naming conventions for the website. And here default Azure domain name. So we are going to use the default domain instead of the custom domain. That's why we are using the default domain. And the SEM URL, this is something useful for debugging the website. So we will talk about this, how to debug the application in the Azure. So we need these two variables, these two parameters. Now coming back to the app service plan, basically copy pasted from the previous file. This is same as the previous file. This is for the website, and this is for API app. So API app type is Microsoft.web/sites, and you see the difference between. So app service plan will have this server form, and API app will have the sites. Same thing, kind is API for the website, kind is app. So that's the difference between API app, web app. And the name, using the parameter, location, reading from the deploy Azure resource group file, and then the rest of the parameters like host name, SSL state, then all this. So this is going to be, properties based on the requirement. So this is going to expand, and this is very important here. Like server form ID, we have to. This is the dependency. This API is going to create inside this server form, inside this app service plan. So same thing here. So I'm giving the web app service plan name for dependency. So in the parameters, we have one for API app service plan and API, and same thing we should have one for web app service plan. So let's build the solution again. Sorry, I think I'm looking in the wrong place. Build solution, again clean, rebuild, right click validate, select the existing resource group, then second file and click on validate. So make sure that the templates which we created and the parameter file is valid. Let's check the output. It says valid. Now let's go and create the app and API app. So deploy resource group, select the subscription resource group and the right template and the parameters. Say click on deploy, on output, connected to the Azure and performing the validation completed. Create the template. Temporarily it will create the deployment template, and then checking the status, provision running, provision state running, all 4 resources provision state running, checking the deployment status every 5 minutes and 10 minutes. So these two app service plans succeed. Website API app succeeded the web app, and finally we'll see all 4 resources are created and the deployment is successful. So let's go to the Azure portal and refresh the resource group. Now I am able to see the app and the API. Under these, if I click on the resource app service plan, I should be able to see one app associated to that, which is API app. So same thing with other resource group. So finally, let's take a look into the same thing. We should have, we'll create the another folder called App Insights. So I can rename this App Insights. Same thing, second file, App Insights. Let's copy the script for the App Insights. Parameters, now let's walk through the application insights. So application insights is going to be used for logging purpose for website as well as the API app. So separate application insight, one for API, one for web, and the type is going to be Microsoft.insights.components and the kind web. So the rest of them are same. This is the application insights ID, and ID is unique. Let's go and clean and then rebuild. So rebuild successful. Make sure that the new file folder is created. Let's go and deploy or validate. Validate the template 3 parameters, validate, and then say template validated. Let's go and deploy to the existing resource group. Click on, it's by default selected. Let's say deploy. Connecting to the Azure. Now template validated. Checking the status. Creating the template deployment happens. So this is going to be created runtime temporarily and will be deleted. And this is the provisioning status succeeded, and the second one is also succeeded. So the deployment is completed. Go back, resource groups, select the resource group and refresh. Make sure that we have the new application insights created as part of that. So this is going to be very useful using the RM templates rather than creating the resources runtime using the Azure portal. And the last script, I'm going to cover how to delete the resources groups or the resources. So either you can delete one resource at a time from here, if you select the particular resource, and you will see the delete resource button. Or from here also you can delete, or you can delete the resource group. From here all the resources will be deleted. When you delete, you have to give the name of the resource group and then say delete. So this is the manual delete, but if you want to automate it, again, you can use it through the PowerShell script. So the PowerShell script will look like this. Here, first you need to log in. When you say login, if you want to save the profile in the C drive, instead of entering the credentials every time, uncomment this, login, and save the profile information in C drive, and then whenever you want to run, you can import that profile and then write the PowerShell command to delete. So remove Azure resource, give the resource name, for example, application insights. So since there is a dependency, we need to delete them in the sequence. The way we created here, we created in the order. We created the app service plan, app service applications, and then app insights. So while deleting, we should delete this, followed by this, followed by this, so that we'll not get any exception. So I've written the delete script options. Let's click on the run. It's connecting to the Azure portal, and then it's deleted. So it's deleted this, deleted this, deleted this one. So like that, you will see all of them are getting deleted. So we can hook this as part of the automate this for deleting in case if you want to automate this. So writing in the PowerShell script will have a lot of advantages instead of doing the manual work. So this is all about the creating a basic architecture app service plan for web app, API app. In my next section, I'm going to cover the SQL part. Thank you.